1 in 25 Americans have had their DNA tested to find out their ancestry. Tonight on The Best Times, we'll explore the hobby of genealogy. The CDC reports that almost half of Americans living with HIV are over 50. Tonight, we'll discuss the work of Friends for Life in helping HIV seniors. Funding for The Best Times is provided by the Plow Foundation, striving to do the greatest good by helping the greatest number of people since 1964. Additional funding is provided by the members of WKNO. Thank you. Hello, I'm Chris Hardaway. Welcome to this edition of The Best Times, a series that looks at life after 50. Have you ever asked yourself the question, who am I? Well, the answer is you are the sum of all the generations that came before you. Tracing the branches of your family tree has become a popular hobby. In fact, a Time USA Today poll ranked genealogy as the second most popular hobby in America. 1 in 25 Americans have had their DNA tested to find out their ancestry. Maybe it's time you should become a DNA detective. Let's take a class in Genealogy 101. If you want to start looking for your long-lost relatives, the place to begin is the Regional History and Genealogy Center in Germantown, home to the Tennessee Genealogical Society. This is where the roots of your past can be found. You can start by filling out a family unit chart, but you'll find the most helpful tools are on a computer connected to the internet. Websites like Ancestry.com are a good starting point for your search. It requires a subscription, but there are free resources like FamilySearch.org, curated by the Mormon Church. These websites have revolutionized genealogy and no doubt account for its growing popularity. DNA testing has also added to the genealogy boom. Linking your DNA results to other databases can help you find branches of your family tree that you might miss in a regular search. But sometimes a trip to the library or the local county clerk's office may be the only way to find that long-lost relative. And genealogists will tell you to prepare yourself for a few surprises along the way. To find out more about this fascinating hobby, I sat down with two professional genealogists. Okay, well, let's talk about, I know I have people watching this who may be interested in finding out their own family tree. So how do you get started?
A lot of it, people think, oh, I can't do it, I can't afford it. But it's so easy. My mother used to go to the courthouse and spend hours transcribing, like, let's say the 1880 census. Now you can go to the computer for free on Family Search or Ancestry.com and just put your name in there and it comes right out. Family Search is free. Sometimes it's FamilySearch.org. Sometimes it will send you to sites like Fold3 that does require a subscription, but then the libraries usually have a subscription to Fold3. Ancestry.com, some of their databases are free, but some of them require subscription. But we have the Ancestry Library Edition at the library. So does Benjamin Hook's library. There's a lot of sites, county archives, state archives, that are online. A lot of the counties are putting their things, like West Virginia, for an example. Even Shelby County archives have free documents, death certificates, and marriage license.
But to get started, do I need to just sit down first and write out, my parents, everything you
a pedigree.
know?
It's a family tree.
And you start with yourself, what you know about your parents, where they were born, when they were born, where they were born, if they're already deceased, when and where they were deceased. You start with a known and you work back towards the unknown. And of course, you have 2 lines that you have to follow, and you have to decide which one you're going to go first. Because sometimes if you try to do both, you just get completely confused.
You get completely lost.
Which is what I did years ago when I first started.
And you want to prove everything. You don't
Right.
want to just take what someone said at face value. You want to find a document. There's 2 different types of documents. Primary, which happened at the time of the event, like a birth certificate or a death certificate. Then you have secondary documents that maybe someone did, like
Family Bible or
yeah,
something?
family
Yeah,
Bible
that
or
would be
something.
secondary.
And a lot of people even now are questioning. It depends on when the Bible, they want the title page to that. Unfortunately, as we get older, our family relatives that we would question have already passed away. So we got to think, what documents did they leave behind? School records, Bible records, birth, marriage, death, divorce. Your cousins might have had something that you don't know that might help.
So it's very much a detective story,
It is.
isn't it?
It is.
Sometimes even your certificates, like your death certificate, is not always accurate because the person, it's only as accurate as the person who gave the information. For instance, with my own grandfather, he had a second marriage, and his second wife did not know the name of his father. And she just, I don't know where she came up with the name that she put down, but it was not the name of his father, so that's an incorrect death certificate. And that happens even closer
It
to
happens
us.
a lot.
Yeah, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to say it happens. And sometimes people, like, I could not find my husband's family's from Italy, but they were in St. Louis. I could not find his great-great-grandfather. His name was Salvatore Lombardo. Well, I finally found him. They had put Lombardo Salvatore. So sometimes that happens. I think the biggest thing is get started is use the census. The first census that we can get to is the 1940 census. And if you can locate your parents or grandparents from the 1940 census, then look for them. It's every 10 years they did a census. So then go to 1930, then 1920, and just follow the family.
Just methodically work your way back.
Then you'll kind of see what counties they were in. Then you'll go to those counties and do research.
The Shelby County Archives has a wonderful online presence, and if you have family that was here in Memphis, they have city directories listed back to the 1880s, 1870s. You can find people now. It takes a little bit of work to go through them, but you can find out. I actually traced one line of my family where they came from Alabama and when they first showed up in Memphis by doing that.
What role does DNA play in putting together your family tree?
There's 3 DNAs that people talk about. There's the mitochondrial, which is the mother's line. So it would be, and men and women can be tested for it. It's their mothers, 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 mothers. And then you have autosomal, which men and women can test for, and it just connects you to cousins. Some people call it cousin bait because it connects you to cousins. And then you have what they call the Y DNA, which is your male line, which would be your, like my husband's sandstone, it'd be a sandstone, sandstone, sandstone.
Now on the websites, I mean, some of the big ones, Ancestry.com, you can put your name in and bing, here come results. It's so easy. How accurate are those results?
Some of it is accurate. We generally tell people to use it as a guideline. For instance, on Ancestry, I might find something, someone has put that so-and-so is my great-great-grandfather. I might go ahead and put it in and then see what I can find. I'll research it. I'll make sure that I have proven myself that this person is indeed the person that I think it is. But you can't take it as scripture. You have to really do your own research. You only use that as a basic guideline.
Now, what happens, and I'm sure this happens, it's got to, what happens when you reach a dead end?
We call that a brick wall.
Yeah, okay. I mean,
Right.
you literally do get to a
go
point where you
through it.
can't go further?
I think I've hit it on at least one line, but most of the time, if you just keep at it, you can just chip away at that brick. Sometimes you have to hire a professional, which we've both acted as professionals. She's done that more than I have and have helped other people. But we both have brick walls.
What about ethnic groups? Are there ethnic groups
Well, right now,
differences?
I'll get to that. Right now, Family Search is the one that goes to all these different counties all over the world and digitizes records. Every week they're letting go. So what you might have a brick wall this week, they may let go of a record like a probate record that might show the kids. So you might not can find something today,
So just
but
keep
you don't know
searching.
what they're going to release. But on the ethnic groups, like let's take African American for an example. they're going to be on the census down to 1870. Before that, when slavery, they weren't listed. And so then what you want to do is find someone that may be a plantation owner that may have the same last name they have, search their probate records and see if they're listed.
Or the slave schedules.
Slave
Yeah.
schedules.
Slave schedules.
Some people actually took pictures and treated their slaves as family, and they're included in their books. I mean, I've had that happen in a Maryland family.
But even if you can trace back to Africa, doesn't it end there pretty much?
They have gone family search.
Yeah.
The Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints is the one who does a lot of this, and they send people over to these countries, whether it's Native American tribes, whether it's Africa, whether it's Germany, and they'll go to these different areas and they'll do DNA. And so when you do your DNA, whatever your DNA closest matched, they'll usually say that's where you're from. But saying that, most ethnic groups are only going to show, unless it's just pure like German or French, but for Native American and African American, after 3 generations, the DNA is what we call watered down, so to speak, and it may not show up. I've got a friend that I know 5 lines, she's got Native American, but her DNA shows nothing.
I would imagine there are surprises. Not every relative is going to be a saint. There might be a few sinners in there.
No.
You have a story about your
Yes.
mother.
We always tell people, if you get into genealogy, be prepared for what you might find. And if you're not prepared, if you don't think you can handle it, don't do it. And I have just kind of thrown that out to people kind of laughingly until the 1940 census came out, and I found out that my own mother had gotten married at age 15. This is something that no one ever knew, and we only found it out because in the 1940 census, they give you a question, where were you 5 years before? And on the census page, there are 2 people that they highlight from that whole page. My mother, of course, was one of them. And my step-grandfather, I always say he busted her out. She actually, they actually have a question that says, has this person ever been married before? And of course I read it, and when I saw the word yes, I nearly fell out of my seat because she was only 20 at the time, and I'm thinking, no, my mother got married in 1941. And so luckily when it got to the column, were any children born, and it said 0, I was very happy.
I bet.
So I did not have to go looking for any brothers or sisters.
Well, I tell you, DNA has really helped adoptees find their.
Yes.
I helped a guy in New York find his birth mother, and he had been looking for years and years and years, and finally, I won't go into this whole other show to tell how it happened, but
A whole
we found
nother story.
he was an only child with his adoptive family, and there were some trials. His adoptive family struggled with it, but now everything's fine. But he's got like 5 or 6 brothers and sisters now.
Tell me what each of you have received from tracing your roots, building your family tree. What is the satisfaction
The
you
joy
get?
of knowing who those people were. There are so many ancestors that we all have. It doubles every generation. You know, we have 2 parents, 4 grandparents, 8 great-grandparents, and it doubles, and it's just amazing the numbers that are out there. If any one of those people had been different, we wouldn't be who we are. We wouldn't be sitting here. Any one of those people. So you want to know who they were, but once you start, it's more than collecting names. You want to know about them. You want to know what their lives were like. You want to know
Put meat
what
to
did
the
they
bones
do.
is what John
Yeah.
Coletta says. Mine was just understanding more why my grandmother was like she was. Why it was kind of, I don't want to say it was an arranged marriage, but it kind of was. You know, back then she was, you know, there's a lot of kids. They had lots of kids back then, and every 2 years it's like they were popping out babies, and and so there wasn't a really close relationship till the end, and they got really close. But when I saw what her parents went through, and then I found out they came across on a horse, you know, in a buggy with all these kids and no money, you know, struggled, it kind of makes it a little bit more, appreciate more what we have. I mean, they didn't have the nice mattresses that we have and the pillows, and sometimes if you think about it, they didn't have the grocery store like we have to go to the Kroger, the Walmart. They had to sew their clothes, and so it kind of, when you really, really look at the history, it makes you appreciate what you have more and understand why they were the way they were.
Most of us have a family story that gets us involved. I had actually 2 family stories that I wanted to prove. One of them I didn't believe, and the other one I did believe, and it turned out that the one I did believe was not true, and the one I didn't believe was true. So that's why we get into it. And these were family stories that had been passed down for years. So we want to know those things, and the idea, like she was saying, how they lived. A lot of people who get into genealogy don't know history. I'm a retired history teacher, and it always amazes me what you don't know about this war, or you don't know about this, and so that's kind of the joy of getting people into genealogy, because they learn history too.
And give me your closing piece of advice.
Well, a lot of it, just a couple of it, is if you do have family history, decide before you pass away who's going to inherit that. Is there someone in the family that's going to take on the legacy? Do you want to donate it to a genealogical society where that's from? And the second is, I always said how excited I would be if I found my grandmother's journal from 100 years ago. Well, 100 years from now, someone's going to want to know about you, whether you have children or not. There's going to be cousins, your grandkids. So write your story. Write down. Don't just say I had a good day. Write why you had a good day. Tell who your parents are. Tell your descendants your lessons that you learned during your lifetime.
Or even record it. Do something with it. Let other people know about it.
Because 100 years from now, somebody might appreciate that.
They can get that old cassette tape and transfer it to whatever they're using.
Oh, well, Carla and Tina, thank you very much for being on the show and talking about genealogy.
We appreciate you asking us. Thank you.
If you're ready to discover your family tree, you can start at the Tennessee Genealogical Society offices or visit their website for information about becoming a member and connecting with experts that can help you find your roots. Before the 1970s, HIV and AIDS were virtually unknown here in America. But the decade of the 80s saw the HIV epidemic spread worldwide, sometimes with frightening results. Today, over 30 years later, HIV is a disease that can be controlled with proper medication, and over 1.1 million Americans are living with HIV. One of the surprising statistics from the Centers for Disease Control is the fact that nearly half of those living with HIV are 50 or older. And those national numbers hold true locally. Recently, I spoke with Diane Duke, Executive Director of Friends for Life, to find out more about HIV seniors. I was surprised when I read that statistic from the Centers for Disease Control that almost half of Americans with HIV are 50 or older, and they report that the numbers are growing. Why? Why are the numbers continuing to grow? Why do we see so many 50 plus with HIV?
I consider that really good news. That means that the population is actually aging. Early on, the population was dying off. So that means that the medical advancements that we have are working, and that people are living long and healthy lives. So you can live a long, healthy life and be HIV positive now.
Let's backtrack a moment, because HIV is not front page news every day. So tell me, what is HIV, and what's the relationship between HIV and AIDS?
So it's a virus that actually attacks your immune system, so you can't fight off infections. And AIDS is actually, so a lot of times people interchange those, but AIDS is actually when the viral load gets so high to a certain point where the body, it's an issue, and it's a permanent, they do it as a permanent diagnosis, although people with AIDS can also start getting their viral load down. So the viral load's so high that the body is in, it's very dangerous possibility of death type experience. So
what are the risk factors for AIDS? Who's at risk?
So people with sexually transmitted infections, needle exchange, blood transfusions, although in the United States the blood banks don't have such great they have such great screening that you're not going to ever have that. People are tested before they can give blood. So but it's bloodborne pathogen is what it's called. So it can be transmitted sexually and through blood, needle exchange, et cetera.
Now, it's symptoms-wise, the symptoms are rather benign, correct?
So when you first contract HIV, it'll be just like you have the flu. So that's what the symptoms are. I mean, eventually, if your body breaks down the immune system, it's much more difficult. But when you get HIV, you won't know that you have it. You just will have flu-like symptoms for the first 2 weeks.
Are older adults at any greater risk than a younger population?
Well, you know, the highest risk population now are what we call young black MSMs. So young black men who have sex with men is the highest risk population. At 1 in 2 gay black men are at risk of contracting HIV. And so that's a real high number. So what's important is that we really talk to people who get tested. So it's important that folks get tested, and that if they find out that they're HIV positive, they get treated immediately. And again, you can live a very long and happy life, healthy life, just like anybody else if you're HIV positive, because of the medical advancements that have been made.
Now, if you are an older person living with HIV, since it does attack the immune system, does that make you more susceptible to some of the diseases of old age?
So I think, you know, what we're finding with our older population is that they have the same problems that everybody at that age has. So if they're medically compliant, which means if they're taking their medication daily, then they're not going to have any more issues than anybody else around their immune system breaking down. So again, the viral load can be so low that it's not even detectable. And what's really exciting now is just last year, or 2 years ago, I'm sorry, the CDC came out with a statement that if your viral load is undetectable, then it's untransmittable. You cannot give it to somebody else. So that's one of the things that's really exciting for us. We're now using treatment as prevention as well. So it's a wonderful breakthrough for the United States.
Well, speaking of treatment, what is the treatment?
So there are, we call them kind of cocktails. There's a combination of medications, and there's about 5 or 6 of those out there that are very, very effective. The thing that's important, though, is that people take that medication every day. Missing your medication, your body can build up an immunity against it, and then what we find out is that it won't work again, and then there are only a few more that they can choose from. So it's really important that people take their medication every day. They take it at the same time every day with the amount of calories that they need to have. And so that's what Friends for Life does. We help them stay medically compliant through a number of different ways.
We spoke earlier about your group of 70 plus gentlemen who meet for their potluck.
Yeah.
And deal with their issues.
So it's great. I mean, I have one of the things that we do is we have a men's group of potluck group that meets one Wednesday a month, and so they come to Friends for Life that evening, and you know, there are some of those folks there are in their 70s, and it's really great listening to them talk about their issues. It's just like if you were at a dinner or a potluck with, you know, men of that age, it's the same issues that everybody else would be talking about. They don't lead with their HIV. They're talking about, you know, their joints hurting, or, you know, they're slowing down a little bit. They couldn't stay out till midnight, you know, last night, or you know, they want to go to Florida. You know, the same thing everybody else talks about, and they're just a great group of guys. And you know, when I just met a new gentleman the other night, and he was talking to me about his experience with Friends for Life early on. When we started helping people die with dignity, basically. We helped friends make sure that their friends were taken care of until they died. So now, you know, luckily that's not the case anymore. But he said back in the day, he had 40 friends who died of HIV. So that's not true anymore. It doesn't have to be true anymore, but unfortunately people do still die from that, and it's not the older people, it's the younger people who are refusing to get tested. They don't want to know, head in the sand, misinformation and bad education around it. So our job is to really get good information out about how it's not something to be stigmatized anymore. You can be, you know, long and healthy, happy lives, and I've got a potluck group of people who can tell you that.
Well, let's talk a little bit more about Friends for Life, your organization. Because what role do you play out in the community? What programs do you have that deal, and specifically with the 50 plus population?
Sure. So we have, you know, our programs will deal will work with everybody. So, you know, some of the things that we do is we make sure that people are housed. So if you're not housed, you're not going to take your medication. You know, that's going to be the last thing on your worries. So we make sure that people are housed. So we help with housing. They need to have food. Again, if they're not eating, they're not going to be taking their medication. Some of our folks deal with mental health issues, and so we make sure that they are mentally stable enough to be able to take their medication every day. And so we help them with mental health issues. then also for some of our older, especially for some of our older people who've started taking the medication and really harsh medication in the early days, the advancements are just amazing. But it used to be just tons of pills. Now it's one pill. That's a combination of drugs. So it used to be tons of pills, and they were really difficult on the body. And so, there's bone breakdown, a lot of times dental issues that come with it. So we really help them with that, medical, getting insurance, things such as that. So, and then, we also try to provide a space where people can come and it can be enjoyable and have a good time. We've got computers, we've got classes for people, wellness classes for people on how to live with HIV, what you need to do.
Well, Diane, thank you for being on The Best Times talking about this issue.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having us.
If you have more questions about HIV, contact Friends for Life or go to their website. Want more information about life after 50? Go online to watch more shows and find more resources. And send us your feedback and story ideas to besttimes@wkno.org. That's all for this edition of The Best Times. Please join us next week for more stories about life after 50. Until then, I'm Chris Hardaway. Thanks for watching. Good night. Funding for The Best Times is provided by the Plow Foundation, striving to do the greatest good by helping the greatest number of people since 1964. Additional funding is provided by the members of WKNO. Thank you.